My parents called me. A disappointment for missing my sister's engagement party due to work. Years later, they regret their golden child favoritism. I never thought I'd be pouring my heart out on the internet, but here I am, feeling completely lost and betrayed by my own family. I'm Liam, 28 Mem, and for as long as I can remember, I've known I wasn't the favorite child in my family. My younger sister, Lucy, 25F, has always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Growing up, the favoritism was subtle at first. We lived in a modest suburban home, our dad Mark, 56 Mem, working as a lawyer, and our mom, Florence, 54F, as a high school teacher. From the outside, we probably looked like the perfect family, 2 kids, a dog, and a white picket fence. But inside those walls, the dynamics were far from perfect. I remember when I was about 10, and Lucy was 7. We both took piano lessons, a requirement from our music-loving mother. I struggled with it, my fingers feeling clumsy on the keys, while Lucy seemed to take to it naturally. After a particularly frustrating practice session, I overheard my mom talking to my dad in the kitchen. "Maybe we should let Liam quit," she said. "He's just not musical like Lucy is. No point in wasting money on lessons for him." And that was the first time I really understood that in their eyes, Lucy was gifted, and I was not. It stung, but I tried to brush it off. I threw myself into sports instead, joining the school soccer team. I wasn't a star player, but I enjoyed it and made good friends. When I had my first big game, I excitedly told my parents about it at dinner. My dad nodded absently, then turned to Lucy and asked about her upcoming piano recital, effectively ending any discussion about my game. As we got older, the favoritism became more apparent. In high school, I maintained a solid B average, not spectacular, but respectable. When I brought home my report card, my mom would give a cursory good job before asking Lucy about her straight A's. When I was chosen as team captain for the soccer team in my senior year, my dad's response was, "That's nice, son," before launching into a detailed discussion about Lucy's chances of being valedictorian. The summer before I started college was when things really came to a head. I had been accepted to a decent state school, not Ivy League, but still a good education. Lucy, who was just finishing her sophomore year of high school, casually mentioned that she was thinking of applying to Harvard in a couple of years. You'd have thought she'd already been accepted and awarded a Nobel Prize from our parents' reaction. They immediately started talking about campus visits, SAT prep courses, and how they'd manage the tuition. I remember sitting there, feeling invisible, as they planned out Lucy's bright future. When I mentioned that I'd need to buy a laptop for college, my dad offhandedly said, "We'll see what we can do," before returning to the Harvard discussion. Later that week, I overheard them talking about dipping into my college fund to pay for Lucy's SAT prep course. They justified it by saying she had a real shot at an Ivy League education, while I was already set with my state school scholarship. College was a mixed blessing. On one hand, it was a relief to be away from the constant comparisons. On the other, the distance seemed to make my parents even less interested in my life. They rarely called, and when they did, the conversations were short and perfunctory. Meanwhile, Lucy would excitedly tell me about the care packages and long, supportive phone calls she received regularly. I graduated with a degree in marketing, not my dream field, but something I thought would provide stable employment. When I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I scanned the audience and saw my parents, looking at their phones. They had attended, yes, but their minds were clearly elsewhere. Later, I found out they were finalizing details for Lucy's high school graduation party, a lavish affair that put my post-college dinner at Applebee's to shame. After college, I moved to the city and got a job in marketing. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me some independence. I dated a bit, made new friends, and tried to build a life for myself. But every family gathering was a reminder of my second-class status. Thanksgiving dinners were dominated by discussions of Lucy's college experiences at Yale. She did end up going Ivy League, to our parents' delight. Christmas gifts were another stark reminder. Lucy would receive thoughtful, expensive presents, while I typically got gift cards or generic sweaters. I tried to maintain a relationship with Lucy throughout all this. It wasn't her fault, after all, that our parents played favorites. We'd meet up for coffee when she was home from college, and I genuinely enjoyed hearing about her experiences, but there was always an undercurrent of tension, a sense that we were operating in different worlds. Things came to a head last year when I lost my job due to company-wide layoffs. The economy had taken a downturn, and my firm was cutting costs. I was devastated, not just because of the loss of income, but because for once I had been doing well at work. I'd recently been praised for a successful campaign I'd led, and there had been talks of a promotion. Swallowing my pride, I called my parents to ask for a loan to help cover rent until I found a new job. Their response was lukewarm at best. "We're a bit tight on cash right now," my dad said, his voice distant. Maybe you should have been more careful with your spending, saved up an emergency fund. I was hurt, but not entirely surprised. What did surprise me was what happened a week later. Lucy called me, bubbling with excitement. She had just passed the bar exam, and our parents had gifted her a brand new car as a congratulations present. A car. When I couldn't even get a loan to cover my rent. That incident was a wake-up call. I realized that no matter what I did, I would never measure up in my parents' eyes. I threw myself into job hunting, picked up some freelance work, and managed to scrape by without their help. But the resentment simmered. Fast forward to last month. Our grandmother, our dad's mom, passed away. The family gathered for the funeral, a somber affair filled with whispered conversations and awkward hugs. During the wake, I stepped out to get some air and overheard my mom talking to my aunt in the kitchen. "It's such a relief to have at least one successful child," she was saying. "I don't know where we went wrong with Liam. He just never seemed to apply himself like Lucy does." I felt like I'd been doused in ice water. All those years of trying to convince myself that the favoritism wasn't that bad, that maybe I was just imagining things or being oversensitive, came crashing down. Here was undeniable proof that in my mother's eyes I was a failure. I managed to make it through the rest of the wake in a daze. Later that evening, I confronted my mom. The conversation did not go well. She tried to backpedal, saying I'd misunderstood, that she was just worried about me. But the damage was done. I left early the next morning, ignoring their calls and texts. Since then, I've been keeping my distance from my family. I declined their invitation to Thanksgiving dinner, making up an excuse about work. Lucy has reached out a few times, seemingly oblivious to the tension, asking why I'm being distant. I haven't had the heart to tell her what I overheard. I'm torn between wanting to cut ties completely and feeling guilty for even considering it. They're my family, after all. We shared good times, too. Family vacations, holiday celebrations, those rare moments when everything felt normal and I could pretend we were a happy, functional family. But every interaction now leaves me feeling inadequate and unloved. I've worked hard to build a life for myself, and while I may not be a high-powered lawyer like Lucy, I'm not a failure. I have friends who value me, colleagues who respect my work, and a life that, while not perfect, is mine. Am I overreacting? Should I try to salvage this relationship? Or is it time to accept that I'll never be more than an afterthought to my own parents? The worst part is, I don't even feel angry anymore, just numb. Like I've finally accepted a truth I've known deep down for years. But acceptance doesn't make it hurt any less. Update 1. It's been a couple of months since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. It really helped me gain some perspective on my situation, and gave me the courage to take some difficult but necessary steps. After much deliberation and several sleepless nights, I decided to have an honest conversation with my parents. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I felt like I needed to express my feelings and see if there was any hope for improving our relationship. I invited them over to my apartment for dinner, thinking a neutral territory might help keep things calm. I spent days preparing what I wanted to say, writing and rewriting my thoughts, determined to express my feelings without letting emotions get the best of me. I even practiced with a friend who gave me feedback on how to phrase things more effectively. The day of the dinner arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. I had cooked my mom's favorite lasagna recipe, hoping that the familiar comfort food might soften the blow of the conversation to come. When my parents arrived, I could tell they were confused by the formality of it all. My mom brought a bottle of wine, and we made awkward small talk as I served the food. Finally, after we had finished eating, I took a deep breath and launched into the speech I had prepared. I started by telling them I loved them and appreciated the sacrifices they had made for us growing up. Then I laid it all out. How their favoritism had affected me growing up, the hurt I felt when they refused to help me financially while lavishing gifts on Lucy, and finally, the devastating comment I overheard at the funeral. I tried to be as specific as possible, giving examples of incidents over the years that had hurt me. I talked about the piano lessons, the college fund, the car gift to Lucy. I explained how these actions had made me feel inadequate and unloved, like I was somehow defective or unworthy of their affection. To say their reactions were disappointing would be an understatement. My dad got defensive almost immediately, his face turning red as he claimed I was being oversensitive and that they had always treated us equally. He brought up times when they had helped me, paying for my college textbooks one semester, helping me move into my first apartment, as if these isolated incidents negated years of favoritism. My mom, on the other hand, burst into tears, saying I was being cruel and ungrateful for all they had done for me. She talked about the sacrifices they had made, working long hours, foregoing vacations, to provide for us. It was as if she hadn't heard a word I'd said about the unequal treatment between Lucy and me. I tried to stay calm, reiterating that I wasn't denying they had provided for me, but that the issue was the clear preference they showed for Lucy. But it quickly devolved into them listing all the ways they had supported me, apparently paying for my school lunches counts as a major sacrifice, and how I had always been a difficult child. They brought up incidents from my childhood, times when I had acted out or gotten in trouble at school, as if these justified their treatment of me. My dad even suggested that maybe if I had applied myself more like Lucy, they wouldn't have had to worry about me so much. The conversation ended with my dad storming out and my mom following, still in tears. As they left, my dad turned and said, "Maybe if you put as much effort into your career as you do into playing the victim, you wouldn't be such a disappointment." I was stunned. Even in my worst imaginings of how this conversation might go, I never expected such a cruel response. It took everything in me not to break down right then and there. After they left, I sat on my couch for hours, replaying the conversation in my head and wondering if there was anything I could have done differently. The next day, Lucy called. Apparently, our parents had given her their version of events, painting me as an ungrateful, jealous son who had ambushed them with baseless accusations. She tried to play peacemaker, suggesting we all get together to work things out. I declined, explaining my side of the story. To my surprise, Lucy seemed to actually listen. She admitted that she had noticed some differences in how our parents treated us, but had always chalked it up to her being the youngest. By the end of our conversation, she was apologizing for not seeing how bad things were for me. It was a small comfort, but it didn't erase the pain of my parents' reaction. I've spent the last few weeks in a fog, alternating between anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief at having finally said my piece, even if it didn't go as I'd hoped. For now, I've decided to take a step back from my relationship with my parents. I'm not cutting them off completely, but I'm limiting our interactions to necessary family events only. It's hard, and there are moments when I second-guess myself, wondering if I'm making a mistake or if I should try again to make them understand. But then I remember the look on my dad's face as he called me a disappointment, and I know I'm making the right choice for my mental health. I've started seeing a therapist to work through some of these feelings and to develop healthier coping mechanisms. I've also thrown myself into my work, feeling a renewed determination to build a life I can be proud of, not to prove anything to my parents, but for myself. I've been taking on extra projects at work and even started a small side business doing freelance marketing for local companies. It's a small step, but it feels like the beginning of something new. For the first time in a long while, I'm focusing on what I want and need, rather than trying to live up to someone else's expectations. It's scary, and there are days when I feel completely adrift, but there are also moments of excitement about what the future might hold. Lucy and I have been talking more frequently, and while our relationship is still complicated, it feels like we're starting to understand each other better. She's been supportive of my decision to distance myself from our parents, even offering to run interference during family events. As I navigate this new chapter in my life, I'm trying to redefine what family means to me. I'm cultivating deeper relationships with friends who have stood by me, and I'm even considering adopting a dog, something I've always wanted but never felt settled enough to do. It's a work in progress, and I know there will be challenging days ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm standing up for myself and my own well-being. It's not the resolution I hoped for with my parents, but it feels like a step in the right direction for me. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments. Life has taken some unexpected turns, both good and challenging. First, the good news. I landed a new job. It's a step up from my previous position, with better pay and more responsibilities. I'm working for a smaller marketing firm that specializes in eco-friendly and sustainable brands. It's a field I've always been interested in, and for the first time in a long while, I feel excited about my career prospects. My boss is supportive and has already mentioned potential for growth within the company. The job came about in an unexpected way. Remember that side business I mentioned in my last update? Well, one of my freelance clients was so impressed with my work that they recommended me to a friend who was looking to hire a marketing manager. It feels good to know that my hard work is paying off and that I'm building a reputation in the industry. Now, for the more complicated part. Remember how Lucy seemed understanding during our last conversation? Well, things have changed. About 2 months ago, she got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Sean, 27M. They've been together since college, and while I've only met him a handful of times, he seems like a decent guy. Of course, our parents were overjoyed at the news. They immediately started planning an elaborate engagement party, sparing no expense. I found out about all this through a group text message, inviting me to the celebration of the year. The party was scheduled for a weekend I had already planned a work retreat, a crucial event for my new job, where we'd be strategizing for a major upcoming campaign. I replied to the group text, congratulating Lucy and Sean and explaining that unfortunately, I had a prior work commitment that weekend. I suggested we celebrate with a private dinner soon, my treat. I thought this was a reasonable response, acknowledging their happy news while also maintaining the boundaries I'd set with my family. The response I got was, not great. My mom called me almost immediately, her voice shrill with anger. She berated me for being selfish and trying to ruin Lucy's special day. She accused me of lying about the work retreat, saying I was just making excuses because I was jealous of Lucy's happiness. When I tried to calmly explain the importance of this work event, she cut me off, saying that if I really cared about my sister, I would find a way to be there. I stood my ground, reiterating that this was an important work event that I couldn't miss, but that I was genuinely happy for Lucy and wanted to celebrate with her another time. The call ended with her hanging up on me. The day of the engagement party, my phone was flooded with messages from extended family members, all expressing their disappointment in my absence. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions on my priorities and family loyalty. It was overwhelming and frustrating to be judged by people who had no idea about the complexities of our family dynamics. Lucy sent me a long text, saying she was hurt that I would choose work over family and that maybe our parents were right about me being selfish. Her words stung, especially after the understanding she had shown earlier. It felt like all the progress we had made in our relationship had evaporated. It felt like I was right back where I started, cast as the family villain for daring to have a life outside of their expectations. The worst part was, I found myself starting to doubt my own decisions. Was I being selfish? Should I have tried harder to make it work? But then I remembered all the times I'd bent over backwards to accommodate my family, only to be taken for granted or criticized. I realized that this was just another example of the double standard I'd dealt with my whole life. If Lucy had a work conflict, I'm sure our parents would have praised her dedication to her career. So, I made a decision. I sent Lucy and Sean a nice engagement gift, a set of high-quality kitchen knives they had mentioned wanting, with a card reiterating my congratulations and my offer for a private celebration. To my parents, I sent a brief email explaining that while I love my family, I need to prioritize my own well-being and career, and that means sometimes I won't be available for every family event. It wasn't an easy decision, and I'm sure there will be fallout. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm standing up for myself and my choices. It's scary, but also liberating. As I navigate this new chapter in my life, new job, new boundaries with my family, I'm trying to focus on building relationships with people who value me for who I am, not who they want me to be. I've been spending more time with friends who have been supportive throughout this journey, and I've even started dating someone new, Florence, 26F, who I met through a local hiking group. It's a work in progress, but I'm hopeful. I'm learning that family isn't just about blood relations, but about the people who support and value you. And most importantly, I'm learning to value myself. Update 3. It's been almost a year since my original post, and I wanted to give one final update. A lot has changed, and I've done a lot of reflecting on my family situation and my place in it. First, the personal news. I've been excelling at my new job. The eco-friendly marketing firm has been a great fit for me, and I recently got a promotion to senior marketing manager. I've even started mentoring some of the newer team members, which has been surprisingly rewarding. It feels good to be valued and recognized for my skills and hard work. My relationship with Florence has been going well, too. We moved in together a couple of months ago, and while it's been an adjustment, it's nice to have a partner who supports me and understands my family situation. As for my family situation, things have been complicated. After my absence at Lucy's engagement party, there was definitely tension, but something unexpected happened at Christmas. I had decided to make an appearance at the family gathering, steeling myself for the usual comparisons and subtle put-downs. But when I arrived, Lucy pulled me aside. She apologized for her reaction to my missing her engagement party, saying she had time to reflect on our past conversations about our parents' favoritism. What really surprised me was what she said next. Apparently, the pressure of being the golden child had been taking its toll on her. She confessed to feeling constantly anxious about living up to our parents' expectations and resenting the way they pitted us against each other. We ended up talking for hours, really connecting as siblings for the first time in years. Our parents, however, haven't shown much growth. They still make comments about my career choices and seem baffled by my newfound confidence. But here's the thing, it doesn't hurt like it used to. I've realized that their opinion of me doesn't define my worth. I've been setting and enforcing boundaries, which hasn't been easy. I declined to be part of the wedding planning drama for Lucy's upcoming wedding, which led to some tearful phone calls from Mom. But I stood firm, explaining that while I'm happy to celebrate with Lucy, I'm not going to rearrange my life for every family demand. The most significant change, though, has been internal. I've stopped seeking their approval or validation. I'm proud of what I've accomplished and the person I've become, regardless of whether it fits their narrow definition of success. Lucy and I have been working on rebuilding our relationship, separate from our parents' influence. It's not perfect, but it's a start. We've even talked about going to family therapy together, though we both agree our parents are unlikely to participate. As for my parents, I'm learning to accept them for who they are, flaws and all, without letting their behavior dictate my self-worth. I maintain a cordial relationship with them, but I no longer bend over backwards, trying to earn their love or approval. This journey has been tough, but it's also been incredibly empowering. I've learned the importance of self-respect, setting boundaries, and surrounding myself with people who appreciate me for who I am. To anyone out there struggling with similar family dynamics, know that it's okay to prioritize your own well-being. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Build your own definition of success and surround yourself with people who support and value you. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and encouragement have meant more than you know.